So I was hanging out today with my friend Caleb and Ryan O'Donnell. Caleb and Ryan together have done over 8 figures a year in sales and did it by age 18, at least for Caleb. You know, Caleb just turned 19 and he made 8 figures by the time he turned 18. And I was with them today at our favorite restaurant here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we were catching up because we haven't seen each other for a few different months, right? The challenging thing about being an entrepreneur and having really successful friends is that you don't see your friends that often. You know, like I don't see my friends that often. So we have a lot to catch up on. We have an infinite amount of things to talk about. And, you know, as I was asking them questions, learning about what they're doing now is different than what they were doing before a few months ago. And it's like every few months I see them, they're doing something a little bit different, right? Not completely different, but a little bit different. They're tweaking stuff. Like they took their company to $1 million a month, over $1 million a month, and now they've tweaked it and they've changed the business model. So now they're selling advertising space on these YouTube channels. And these YouTube channels, you know, their combined total are getting, you know, billions of views. But before, what they were doing is they were selling the creation of these channels. And they did that. They made a lot of money doing that, super successful with that. And then they pivoted to something that's an even bigger opportunity. And here's the thing. You would think that someone who is that successful, that young, would have a big ego. You would think that they would be, you know, they'd be cocky or full of themselves, but that literally cannot be further from the truth. I'm talking about the most humble people ever. Their ego is not tied to anything that they do. The reason why they pivot so often and they try so many different things within their business is because they're so quick to admit that they're wrong, and they're not married to any one idea. They're not married to any one thing. Their ego and their identity isn't attached to what they're doing. They're on a mission. They're tied to the outcome, and whatever they have to do to achieve that outcome, they don't care what the process is going to be. They don't care whether that's going to be selling advertising space, whether that's selling, creating YouTube channels for people, whatever that is, right? What they care about is the outcome. Their ego and their identity is not tied to anything. And they told me that they had their entire leadership team read this book called Founders at Work. And the reason why they had their leadership team read this book is because they're literally changing something every week. Every week, they're changing something in the business. They're doing something different. And their leadership team's like, what the heck? Like, why are you guys changing all the time? Why are you constantly changing the way we're doing stuff? Why are you like constantly firing people, hiring new people, you know, changing the structure, changing the sales pitch, changing the whatever, you know? They're constantly changing things within the business all the time. And it's because they're tied to the outcome, they're not to their own ego. They're so willing to admit when they're wrong or when something's not working, and they're so willing to do that so quickly that it allows them to pivot from thing to thing to thing, to test this thing, experiment like a mad scientist all the time, because they're not tied. Their identity is not tied to a certain way of doing things. And that's why they have no ego, because they failed so much and they're willing to admit when they're wrong so often. And that's one of the reasons why they're so successful, is because they're not married to any one way of doing things. I know a lot of people, they feel like they need to be stuck doing something even if it's not working, because it makes them feel bad to switch to something else, to try something else if something's not working, or your intuition says it's not going to work. You know, most of us, it's very hard for us to do that. We get in this comfort zone, we get in the status quo. It takes a lot of effort to change, but they're constantly changing because their ego is not tied to what they're doing. So I thought that was a really important lesson. And I know that I can remove my ego a lot more to the things that I try to do to become, you know, more successful in my own life. So I think that's a great takeaway. Take that and use it how you will. Just wanted to share another video today, and hope you have a blessed day.